Hello, welcome to the podcast. My name is Caitlin, and I was off yesterday, so that's why there's been less episodes. Also, I had an appointment on Friday, so it has been like 4 days. But that's just how life is, and I have another appointment this coming Friday, so there's only gonna be 3 episodes this week. Maybe, most likely. But yeah, I've been like binging this one podcast that I'm not entirely comfortable mentioning because it's a bit out there. But it's something that I've been enjoying, and I really enjoy things that are outside of societal norms, I guess I should say. I don't understand why certain things are considered unacceptable socially, as long as you're not, hurting anyone, or, as long as it's not something that's not been consented to. I don't really see what the problem is and why people are so, I don't know. It's just let people live their lives and enjoy things. And I was talking to my partner recently about how certain things are just like kind of considered normal kid behaviors, or things that like kids do that maybe we think is really strange or we don't talk about because, you don't want to admit that you've done something as a child that it was, I don't know, taboo or something. And you're just like, I don't know, kids are curious. They're going to do weird things. They're going to, be curious about stuff. And I feel like as we get older, we kind of lose that curiosity about things. And I think it's a shame. And I haven't, for the most part. I am still extremely curious about all sorts of things. And I don't think that should be something that's looked at as wrong or bad. And I think my partner agrees in a lot of ways. And a lot of times, various traumatic experiences that we go through, whether they're big T traumas or little T traumas, they can shape, what we think is acceptable because, oh, well, like this happened and it really hurt me, either physically or emotionally. And so anything that has anything to do with that, I can't handle. And I think part of the healing process can be, accepting what happened in the past, and also realizing that you can still be curious and try new things without it necessarily being tied to that experience. But obviously you don't want to you don't want to like jump in and be like, oh, well, this horrible thing happened, and so now I'm going to just face my fears and it'll all be better. Like, no, you need to do some like self-reflection, make sure you're really in a good mindset before you try new things, especially if it's something that reminds you of something else that hurt you. It's yeah, I'm definitely not recommending people just go and like re-traumatize themselves. Please don't. But there is a way to like recover from that and be able to enjoy other experiences that maybe were triggering in the past. And I think for me, I didn't experience the same traumas that he did or the same negative experiences that he did. And so I don't necessarily have those things to battle with or to work through. And so I've been trying to be really cognizant of the fact that we're coming from different places. And so we may not see things the same way, but it doesn't mean that either of us are wrong. It just means that, maybe there's some things that we both need to work on in order to kind of accept ourselves, accept things that have happened in our families, to be able to be fun-loving, free, curious people. So, yeah, it's just something I've been thinking a lot about. I have a lot of sensory issues, so things that I have always dreamed of doing, like traveling all the time and seeing new things, trying new things, can be really hard for me. And so it feels like something I don't want to live without, but it's also really hard to do as well. And so it can be hard to reconcile that. But I have found that I like trying new things better with my partner. And so I want us to be kind of on the same page with things as much as possible, or at least know what page we're on. And so that we can both be comfortable in whatever it is that we're wanting to try, but or like places to go or things to do, like just anything. Yeah, I don't want to ever be too afraid and that hold me back. I don't want to let fear keep me from trying new things. So doesn't mean I'm ever going to be able to be this fantasy person that I had in my head when I was 16 and all the things that I wanted to do. But doesn't mean that I can't do those things either. I just maybe can't do them to the extent that I thought I could when I was 16 and didn't know myself very well. But I don't want to lose the excitement and anticipation and all of that. So, anyways, let's get on to the topic today. Not really. Sorry. I did do a few more lessons, so I got more to talk about. And I hope you guys are enjoying this. I don't know if nobody's really said anything either way, but some of these are definitely more geared towards, like this one is definitely more geared towards, like businesses and workplaces and that kind of thing. I have thought about, how could I bring this more into a business setting instead of just like a one-on-one coaching with neurodivergent people. Like, would there be coaching for businesses to figure out how to implement these practices and yeah, it's definitely an interesting thing to think about. Doing more of like a group style thing and working with individual companies to figure out how to be more inclusive in their business practices. So today I'm talking about promoting inclusive hiring practices, which I am sure if you are a neurodivergent person, you have experienced the challenges that come with the hiring process. It's basically all small talk. They ask questions that are extremely difficult to answer because you're like, I don't know what how would someone else rate you? I have no clue. Ask them. That there's just these questions that they ask, and they tend to be really vague, and it can be really hard for neurodivergent people to figure out what's happening here. And there's other things, but that's just the thing that first popped to my head. So, my notes say, acknowledge and address conscious and unconscious biases that may influence hiring decisions. So, in some places, you know, there's certain things that are requirements that may make certain things like kind of not possible, but it's very rare. And I think that we tend to, especially as business owners or hiring people that are hiring, we tend to think we're looking for this one very specific type of person. And I think that that can be very damaging and to the people you're interviewing, but also to the company, because you don't necessarily know what's the best thing for your company. And also you can kind of disregard some of people's positive qualities by looking at, you know, a diagnosis or a like a specific trait that you find to be off-putting that doesn't really affect their ability to do the job that, you know, they're interviewing for. So it's definitely good to take a good look at that before even starting in the hiring process. Ensure fair evaluations for all candidates based on skills and qualifications. Kind of what I was already talking about. You know, having a clear idea of what the actual qualifications and expected like work to be done without having the kind of strict view of what you want someone to act like or be like or sound like or look like that isn't really pertinent to the job. But again, that's different for every business, every industry, so you have to figure out what your core values are for your industry and for the position you're looking for. Use inclusive language in job descriptions that welcome candidates of all backgrounds and abilities. So I think that's definitely really helpful, using inclusive language. Not only does it make somebody more comfortable in just like starting the hiring process and even applying, but it also it shows that you're actually taking care in the hiring process and you're not just, you know, trying to, I don't know, it shows that you care. And that's kind of indicative of how you're going to treat your employees later on too. So I think that's very important to consider the implications of inclusive language when, you know, it might seem like, oh, this is just taking more time for me to make sure that I'm, you know, not using restrictive language. You know, how is this really helping anybody? But it kind of shows, it shows people's character if they don't. So, highlight commitment to diversity and inclusion in job postings and consider alternative formats to accommodate diverse candidates. So that one's a big one for me. When you're listing a job, I've seen so many, you know, I've applied for plenty of jobs in my day, even though I'm only 25, but like I've applied for plenty of jobs, and it can all start to look the same. You're like, I don't know, you know, I can't tell the character of anybody based on reading this. It just looks like, you know, it could have been any job. I've applied to so many, you know, people are applying to things and they're like, wow, they all look the same. How could I possibly tell which one's going to be better than another? Why do I care to apply for this place versus another? Those are ways to really set yourself apart. Things that I think are really important when it comes to job postings, because I've seen some really bad ones. Ensure job applications are accessible to those with disabilities, provide accommodations for those who require assistance during recruitment. So I know it can be difficult, especially for small businesses, to be able to provide accommodations. But to me, it's little things. It doesn't necessarily have to be, anything particularly taxing or expensive to implement. It's just little things that add up. It's the way that you treat people and that you care about them despite, whatever it is that they're dealing with disability-wise. You're not looking at them differently. It's really just, do you care about this person as a person? Or do you just see their disability? And you can really tell the difference when you, especially, I'm sure, as somebody who has a more outward disability, but, even for me, as somebody who has disabilities that are not visible, once people know, they can definitely treat you differently. And I think it's really important to emphasize that we are just still people. There's nothing, so different about us that we should be treated any differently. Removing barriers to entry for all applicants. Train the interview person on inclusive practices and techniques. So, I would say having multiple ways of applying is helpful. Sometimes, it can be difficult for people to, depending on what technologies that they need, maybe they don't have them at home, so is there a way to apply in person? Or vice versa, maybe they have a hard time getting out and it's more of a virtual thing, and do you have a way of providing assistance to somebody virtually? And training the interview person. I've been interviewed by plenty of people that I'm like, I don't think anybody has ever trained you on how to interview. It's, you can tell. Again, you can tell. The last thing you want when you're being interviewed is that you catch them off guard. You feel like they should probably be the one that is, directing. And, as soon as you say something, they're like, wait, what's happening here? That's not a good sign. So definitely making sure that you are very solid before you're interviewing anybody. Ask behavior-based questions to assess skills and competence. So when I think of behavior-based, I'm not thinking, what are your accommodations? I'm thinking, what are your capabilities when it comes to, the work structure that you're expected to have? What are the things that you're good at that would be easily applied to this position? Are you an introvert? Are you an extrovert? Are there things that are, maybe challenging for you, that could come up in this role? So just, I know for me, I wouldn't be good at being a server because that's not something that I don't like talking to a bunch of new people all the time, and I have shoulder problems, so I can't be holding stuff like that. So, there's certain things that immediately you're like, okay, that's probably a bad choice for a job and you should try something different. So, just kind of figuring out, I think if you go into the interview process, kind of like how you would go into a sales situation where it's like, okay, what do you need? What are you, here for? Obviously, most people are like, I'm just here for a job, but it's like, Are there skills that you're wanting to improve? Are there things that you're wanting to get out of this? And then what do you bring to the table? So, and then, you know, if it's not the right fit you're looking for the person, it's not like, oh, you know, we just don't like you. It's, I don't think that this is the best fit for you. And, yeah, I don't want to give you the position and then you have a hard time, because from what I'm seeing, this isn't going to be the best fit. So I think if you approach it that way, it goes down much better if you're, you know, dealing with, you know, multiple people interviewing for the same position. Collaborate with candidates to identify accommodations such as assistive technology or flexible work arrangements. That one is one that I definitely wish there was more of. I feel like we don't really allow for a whole lot of flexible work arrangements. I know my job doesn't. When it comes to like time off or working from home, it can be kind of challenging. That's something I struggle with. But they also are very accommodating in allowing me to have, you know, my earplugs and my stim things and my sunglasses if I need it. And so I really do think that they're doing, you know, what they can, but I think scheduling wise is the one area where it just can be a bit of a challenge. And I think finding ways to accommodate people who maybe have a hard time with their mobility, and it, you know, not necessarily a daily thing, or they've got chronic pain and it's like, yeah, I have issues, but not all the time, and I still can do things, I just can't do all of the things. How can we, you know, maybe come up with more areas that I can work on from home or virtually or whatever. Develop inclusive onboarding plans to support all new hires. Encourage ongoing learning and professional development, and create mentoring networks with the organization. So, sorry, people already at work, I swear. I'm not working yet. Having inclusive onboarding plans, making sure that you're looking at, you know, the person's needs when you're onboarding, I think goes a long way. If it shows that you care about them, again, like, it just, a lot of these things come down to just, to me, pretty basic caring about the people that you have working for you. And then, yeah, having everybody kind of learning together, you know, ongoing learning within the organization is so important. And having mentoring programs, even if it's not necessarily a program, if you've got a really small company like the one I'm working for, but like having that communication with people at different levels and encouraging continuous communication and learning helps everybody kind of grow together and just become a better organization overall. Track and analyze neurodivergent representation in the workforce and select goals for diversity inclusion utilizing feedback data. So I work with several neurodivergent people. I think that the industry that we work in is pretty accommodating for neurodivergence, and also the company that I work for is pretty inclusive. But it's always good to kind of look at, you know, are we seeing that in other places, in other companies within the industry? Why are we seeing it here and maybe not other places? Or, you know, that does seem to be a relatively inclusive industry. You know, why is this industry more inclusive than others? You know, I think it's a really important thing to look at, and I don't think anybody's really doing that right now that I'm aware of, so who knows, maybe another project, I don't know, there's so many projects, I have so many things, but yeah, I think in general it's really good to look at what industries are more inclusive and why, and what companies within that are inclusive and why, are they doing better than the companies that aren't inclusive? What are these defining factors? What is the data saying to us? And then what are real people saying as well? You might have a company that looks super inclusive on the outside, but then when you look at the culture within, people are treated differently, and so I think it would definitely be something good to look into, and I don't think we've done it as much. I know we've done it more with gender-related studies, but I don't think I've seen much when it comes to neurodivergent-related studies, so I think that would be very helpful information to have. So if anybody likes doing that sort of thing, please do that. I would absolutely love to learn more. Anyways, today's going to be a bit of a shorter episode. There was a bit of traffic on my way here. But I just want to say that you guys are great. And I would love to hear more from you. And I'm not the kind of person to be like and subscribe and do all the things. But I feel like maybe I should be saying more of that because, I don't know, everybody does. Am I supposed to? I don't know. I would appreciate it. I always love seeing, when I see numbers on like Spotify listens and downloads and stuff, I don't think of it as, oh wow, look at how many, look at the numbers. I'm always thinking, wow, those are real people that took real time out of their busy lives to spend a little bit of time listening to me talk. That's crazy to me. So I just wanted to say that I really appreciate you guys. And yeah, I would appreciate you sharing if you feel anybody else might be interested in this type of thing. I am definitely struggling with a bit of the ADHD, oh, but I want to be doing this, and maybe I could start doing this one, and maybe I'll start a new podcast on this topic, and I'm not doing that right now. But it's hard when it's all buzzing around in here. But I do just want to say that I really appreciate you guys taking any time out of your day to listen to me talk, which is crazy. But if you know of anybody else who might listen to me talk and enjoy, then definitely share. I know that I talk about some pretty vulnerable things on here, but I really don't mind this being public because I think it's really important to break down some of these barriers that we've set up where it's just not considered acceptable to be open and talk about, real life things that affect us every day, things that maybe are hurtful or harmful, and how we really feel about things. And I know for me, especially because it's hard for me to figure out what I feel and it's hard for me to describe how I feel, that I typically tend to isolate and don't tell anybody. And even if I know what I'm feeling, I just don't talk about it. So I think this is as much for me as it is for anybody else. Just trying to experience what it's like to be open and honest, and I really appreciate the platforms that are allowing me to do that. And I feel like I'm definitely growing as a person, so thank you very much, and I hope you have a good rest of your day, whatever it is that you're doing, and that you remember that no matter what, no matter how you choose to live your life, as long as you're not actively hurting somebody or doing anything to anybody without their consent, you are enough.